Okay, it's preparing to live stream, so be careful what you say from now on. Good, and we're live. Well,
perfect.
In 2 seconds. Yeah, we're live.
Okay, so would you like to go first with the crypto twin update?
Yeah, so we have discussed earlier, well, just for everybody's benefit, so that they get on track with this. We had essentially two projects in Orchidao that approached us where there was a kind of bridge between smart contracts and NFTs and essentially physical reality. One example of this was Crypto Barista, which essentially is creating kind of NFTs of baristas essentially, and they wanted to create this kind of coffee shop, a real coffee shop, where having an NFT would actually give you certain additional benefits, like, for example, automatically a 20% discount, or some governance in terms of what kind of coffee the chain would produce, or something like that. So a lot of that was one. There was another one where we were discussing with a gallery in Chicago in terms of bridging essentially their physical location with a location in the metaverse. And then there is a third collaboration which has been confirmed with ETH Zurich, where they have created what they call a decentralized autonomous space, which is a small infrastructure project that works to blockchain and smart contracts. And it's essentially kind of like, imagine the DAO concept operating a space or a building. And we had started already discussing with them the idea, well, we had started already discussing the idea of a crypto twin with also Jirka and Simone in terms of getting a 3D printed building they did operating through smart contracts. So all of these projects kind of had a common thread, which is being able to connect a physical location, a physical space with blockchain and potentially also other automation technologies, Internet of Things, maybe AI, I don't know, right? So I'm not an expert on those, but the main idea was to try and get on one level experiment, and on another level also find ways where turn this into kind of like an Uber product of Orchidao, because it would be perfect, right? We could design spaces both virtually and physically, but also connect them through blockchain. We had a meeting with ETH, and they're really interested in Orchidao essentially developing more kind of like the digital twin of the DAS and calling it a crypto twin. And this is kind of an opportunity for us to develop essentially what we would see more like a product or service. We can either base consultancy fees on, right? So someone can come and say, well, I want you to implement 20% of that or 30% of that, or, you know, pick and choose kind of idea. Or even we implement it for them in whatever kind of variety they might want. So I had a discussion with Una, who is the main researcher, the main PhD researcher from ETH 3 weeks ago in Amsterdam in the third construction blockchain research workshop. And I came up with a framework, which I'm going to try and show now. This is all based on, so this is really high level. It's not detailed, and I'd like us to discuss it.
Are you sharing the link or screen?
I'm trying to open it now, and then I'll share it. Give me a second. Actually, let me share it first. So those of you with access to the GitHub, double check if you have access to the CryptoTwin repository, where I have consolidated a lot of it, a lot of previous work with contracts and so forth, and you'll find this diagram as well. So it all starts with a building, which here is represented by this fellow right here. And through IoT devices, we are able, well, just to start before that, right? So the concept of what is a digital twin, right? So a digital twin is essentially an digital information kind of doppelganger of physical facility. And why are you going into the process of actually building one? Well, you can essentially allow yourself to make decisions on how to manage or maintain or even construct a physical artifact by using essentially the digital twin. The concept was created, first of all, from high-end manufacturing processes about 20 years ago, and it's fairly new for the construction industry, but people are picking it up really fast. So the idea here is to kind of use smart contracts to create what we call a crypto twin, which is essentially a digital twin enhanced by blockchain technology. So I'll talk about the components first. So this is the building, all the physical infrastructure, including all of its energy systems, control systems, structure, envelope, internal fabric, everything. We also have, or I suppose we have, a digital model of this building, and potentially also a metaverse model. These are two different things, and they're not the same because there are different needs in terms of what you need for a BIM model, a BIM model, and what you need for a metaverse. And a lot of times the metaverse model will be very much lighter information-wise, and the information you need is a little bit different. You have a front-end interface. You have the smart contracts, which are located here with some connections outside. And this is a data repository, probably on IPFS, along with a document hash table. And sitting outside that, you also have a simulation engine, because part of the deal is you need to simulate the environment, right? So you need to simulate, for example, weather conditions, wear and tear, maintenance, predictive analytics, stuff like that. So the physical installation communicates through a front-end interface via IoT devices through the users. The front-end interface provides two pathways of authentication, right? Acting as gateway, but also use. And then this goes into a registry for IoT, so you know what device it is, what is the role. You have a user registry, probably also potentially connected with NFTs or NFTs themselves. This connects to governance smart contract, which handles the treasury, and the treasury handles operations, right? So essentially what you have here is the agents of the DAO can, through the registry, the governance, the treasury, affect change into what is happening with the physical model, the physical structure. You have an activity log, and then you have non-fungible tokens, essentially topologically linked with the model of the building. So you can kind of, on the level of a smart contract, take the whole building, the whole digital building, and kind of isolate parts of it, right? So you can isolate the structure, you can isolate windows, you can isolate, even to the level of isolating smaller components. You have also data logs, which are, so anything that is storage heavy is kept in IPFS, and only the logic is kept on smart contracts. So you have data logs also here in terms of operations, right? And then also any activity log or operations also connect back to physical, or you use essentially the simulation and the digital model to make decisions, right? So this works through this, through operations and back to the physical. Now, the beauty of this, and this is where this kind of tries to incorporate a lot of concepts of other people that have already written about, for example, digital performance, performance contracts for digital twins, the concept of digital twins on blockchain. So what is a kind of, let's say, unique Archidal moment is that we create the metaverse model and then we create a bridge to the metaverse, but also through these free smart contracts, we can create another bridge to the metaverse here and a bridge to decentralized finance, but also to a data marketplace. So you can essentially kind of take advantage of the data log and the model you have here and kind of pull that information into a much more common marketplace. And this was developed also, is an idea developed by ETH, and we've worked with it together with Daniel Hall and another research bit with it. Now, within that, so this is just a framework. What does that mean? It means that the details will be potentially a lot less if you're trying, for example, to create, let's say, a coffee shop that runs through this, right? So, so this is more of a theoretical thing we're trying to build compared to that essentially will help us build it in a modular fashion, right? So, for example, you can build the governance and the NFTs. So this connector, for example, that modeled with the NFTs, we already have it, right? I've built this. The NFTs with users and the governance, this is something that probably will be easier to build. Operations probably is a little bit harder, right? So anything that has to do with IoTs and touches on the physical space starts to become a lot harder. Another innovation that I wanted to tell you about was that through simulation and predictive analytics, you can also create database governance and allow the users that are operating this facility make decisions that are based on, empirical proof rather than, habit, for example. And situations like that might tell you, for example, when you need to switch to change the light bulb is a classic example, or you need to take care of a particular component in the building. Now, I think we have the chance here to create, if you take, for example, think of the coffee shop or the example of the gallery, right? So you might have a gallery that operates in the metaverse selling NFTs, but also has a physical component, and you might have an event taking place both in the physical space and in the metaverse space, and you have an interaction between them. So I'm not claiming this is complete. I've used my experience with building smart contract systems with buildings to kind of plan this ahead, and happy to take any comments and questions.
Also, I think I really like the approach, the way you are integrating and this communication and the data marketplace. I think this is a really good infrastructure. What I was thinking, in terms of implementation wise, we have also an opportunity at the NFT level, how a graph-based building NFT looks like. So what's the hierarchy? What's the, are units been owned by the occupants, and is the maintenance being owned by the HOA? So that's, we can also make a template or a model how a building graph NFT looks like, and maybe start a standard for it. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I wanted to work with the team, and we've kind of conceptualized the idea, but we haven't done it yet. And I think that should probably be sitting somewhere here. I'll find a way to put it in the paper, and I think it potentially what this would allow us is much faster access information about every other. But also it allows you the other thing, right? It allows you to have multiple owners for a building in terms of components, right? So you might have a company, for example, servicing the M&E part, and having total reliability in terms of the mechanical and engineering part.
And that connection to DAO also helps. Let's say there's a common area and they want to, oh, we want to organize an exhibition, or we want to do a coffee shop in, or like things based on like, even like there's one time and also building lifetime needs. So how this lifetime governance is again tied back to ownership, again tied back to the treasury.
Yep, exactly. So at least at the moment, for the paper I'm writing, and I'll have a version to circulate tomorrow. Our deadline is for I think Sunday. Is, you know, I'm focusing on these, but there are issues here that we discussed with Una and Daniel from ETH that they would be working on. For example, common pool resources, on how this maps on how would a DAO operate, right? And if you remember, the concept was also that we'll provide the framework, we'll help them build it, but also by them having the data already, we can also test it in terms of how this would work.
Nate has a question.
Yeah. Yeah, so a question of interpretability, how information gets transformed between platforms and different models of representational models, different types of representational models. Yeah, I think, so if I take it as two questions, right? So one is the different types of representational models. So even just creating, for us, I think, as I'm changing this, I'm trying to save it to GitHub. You know, this connection between digital building model and metaverse model, and being able to easily translate between the two. You will see, I think, already that there is interest from architects in terms of the metaverse. And I'm willing to bet hard currency on it that a lot of them will take models, big models that they have, and they're going to try and put them on the metaverse, and it's going to fail because when you try to translate those, right, you have like information you don't need for the metaverse. For example, the complexity of your structure, for example, is not needed. You might need it for communication or aesthetic purposes, but you don't need it because it's playing a role. The complexity of the M&E installation, if it's there, right, you also might not need it. Plus, you also might run into trouble, as we've certainly seen, with the capabilities of the metaverse platform you're going into. So one of the things that we can basically become good at is doing those translations and finding easy ways to do it, or do them semi-automatically, because then we can become the go-to people where we help people with those kind of translations. And with big models, it's not trivial, right? So if it's small models, you could go, yeah, I'll rebuild it. If it's a really big model, no way, right? It's the amount of hours it takes. And then the question is always about building controls. Yeah, so part of the idea here is that half of it returned. I should probably take this over here in terms of the IoT devices. So the operations, when they return, they should return to the IoT devices. There are also blockchains that run, that are particularly well structured for this one, like IOTA, that basically run on IoT. I have, and the good thing is that IOTA now have an EVM compatible compiler, so you can actually still write Solidity for them from that point of view. But main idea is, you know, it's kind of easy to test the system conceptually. The difficult part would be to actually build a physical facility to counteract with us. On that level, we thought with a cool experiment we could do with Jirka and Simone is to connect a studio in Aberdeen, you know, because architecture studios normally, they all look the same. It's a big room, windows, bunch of tables, right? That's basically it. So connect a studio in Aberdeen with a studio in Prague through the metaverse. kind of like using this component, this framework. Yeah, but again, we need to find low-hanging fruits we can start building this, and that's why the ETH collaboration is good.
Do you know if there are metaverses that are more friendly with an IFC format?
I don't know the answer to that question. No.
Yeah, most of the metaverses are using GLB or GLTF.
Yeah.
There's no like AC friendly metaverse.
So from the very little I know about IFC, I would guess we would be looking at translating the geometry, the information, the geometry, the texture and color into GLTF compatible, essentially, models.
Yeah, that is one thing I wanted to discuss it. So right now, like I think one of the major decision we need to make in this framework is, are we using web-based 3D engine to host it, or are we using like Unreal or Unity? Because if we use, let's say, 3JS, then 3JS has compatibility with IFC.js. Then all we need is convert from Rhino Revit to IFC. But if we but the IFC also supports 3JS also supports .obj model, FBX, GLTF. So it's like if we are doing like, okay, a lot of this web-based and right now the challenges is Unity and Unreal are still like figuring it out, like UI components for Web3 authentication, like you can do with pixel streaming. So if we are making like a lightweight architectural hosted metaverse where we are getting AC models, we have this urban plan where people like can like we can easily integrate with, like, let's say a map where they can put their 3D model using mapbox.js. And one thing I was thinking, like there's a really good, like IFC.js adopts like maximalistic approach. So each and every building element has all the information, and Speckle adopts minimalistic approach. So whatever is not there, like don't store. So even Speckle might be also an interesting option for data interoperability or like that format.
We looked at we're looking at Speckle with Vasim in terms of their connector with Unreal. They have a connector with Unreal. So we're trying with Vasim to kind of hack a connection between TopoloGic and Unreal. It's not easy. It's a pain in the neck. And we looked at Speckle for doing that. And I think Speckle, is going to help us with a lot of the things we're trying to do. And I think there is a part to fit in here. Now, one of the things I'm going to claim on the paper is, and this comes from the creator of Digital Twins, Michael Greaves, that says, you know, do you have a digital twin before you have a physical object? And the answer is yes, you do. You just might call it something else, right? So there is an opportunity here to kind of start treating everything that you're doing as an architect, as a model, with the explicit target that at some point it will be part of a digital twin. Now, just to try and answer your question, my gut feeling is it's going to take some years before we have dominant platforms. Everybody is still jumping around the place. So yeah, I don't know whether but also I don't think there will be one metaverse platform. I think we'll end up with lots of web or at least one web-based one. And then all of the game engines will have some version of it that are maybe flavored, you know.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, are we providing like our own hosting service, or the individual people will do the hosting? Because if we are integrating all the digital twins from various models and having an auth, like we are creating a semi-metaverse. Like, are we in the head game or are we into the infrastructure game?
I don't know. I think we need to look at how we could maybe see a connection between IPFS and metaverse. How would you do that? Is there something to be monetized here? I think probably there is, but I didn't look at the technical details. The other thing that is interesting is the bridges, right? Because this is still a model that doesn't really get act on the metaverse. The metaverse is sitting somewhere here. Same thing for the bridge to DeFi, right? Could you have a building that through operations gains its own treasury or gains its own money, right? And then whatever you have in treasury gets compounded because you allow part of it to be lent out on DeFi. But I think the connection between IPFS and metaverse is also a really interesting one. Nate, I'm aware of 3.js, and there is probably something to do there in terms of integration. But I'm not the person to talk about metaverse, so yeah, I don't know whether they would be easy to work with.
If it helps, like I did a Ipfs Parser for like images and things. So basically, we might need like a custom script where I'm reading data from Ipfs, and let's say it's a 3D model. I'm converting that 3D model into, let's say, 3JS compatible, and then 3JS renders it on the web. So what it ultimately, the user experience will be in copy paste the link of your Ipfs 3D model, click render, and suddenly you'll see your 3D model being rendered. So
okay,
it's
but just to yeah, so this is where it is at the moment. I'll circulate the paper as soon as I have it ready. And the other thing I'm working on is obviously the infrastructure for the DAO with the NFTs. But yeah, if anybody else wants to have a chat on that, happy to do so.
Yeah, no, I think it looks great. Sorry, I'm just hearing off of it. My internet connection's a bit down, yeah, due to the load shedding. But yeah, I think that's a great start, and go from there, build from there.
That's fine. We can hear you really, really well, Siko.
so like Theo, you mentioned about that Akida NFT and the distribution. Maybe if we can clarify here and the timeline, how should we go for next steps?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit well, not overworked. I'm trying to kind of find time to relax a little bit because I haven't gotten any downtime. This is my classical phrase for if I'm not responding for 3 days, it means that I am. It's not because I don't like you, but yeah. So we have. I'll try and find the flow chart that Chico did. I thought we should work in teams. So instead of having like one person for one, we can have like a pair or maybe 3 people. And this doesn't mean that if you're in a team, you also have to do development. You might be able to do project management or, you know, getting information for the team, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to open a, I'm trying to open the diagrams. So sharing again. So if you go to Archidao NFT and you go to flowchart, you can open this one from draw.io. And the 2 or 3 main components are, first of all, an NFT that acts as a membership or ID and record for each of the members. You also have essentially, so this acts as a streamline diagram, right? So we'll start with the customer. Well, no, let me start with presenting what is going on, right? So we have essentially the Archidao NFT, which is the membership NFT of the DAO, and then you have a contract NFT, which acts as a kind of token that the customer needs to buy. You also have a treasury, and you also have a fungible token that we use for stakes and payments, and probably a stable coin. Now, what I'm going to present is essentially the way this would work in terms of being a member essentially on Archidao, and then more or less how we see this going in working in a decentralized manner. So as an Archidao member, you create your own NFT. This gets minted, but also the multi-sig governance, essentially the core group or people in the core group need to validate that. This becomes then active. And this allows you to participate in projects, right? So you can buy or mint the stake coin. Now, at the same time, there's a client who buys a contract. The contract NFT also, after we deliberate off-chain, we set milestones and deliverables, and this gets validated either by the multi-sig or the project manager of the project. The customer agrees, right? This is why they validated this as well. And then the smart contract runs here that essentially takes care of the project. To participate in that project as an Archidao member, you need to stake. So you stake your coins. Project milestone gets grids, and then those that get staked have their probably either returned the AC20 with interest or get paid in stable coins. By the way, at the start, when the customer validates also the milestones, funds get deposited in escrow, right? So we have the funds essentially to create the project and pay for it. So on the back end, there is this kind of line created here. And then another project milestone gets grids, right? Stake get burned, stable coins earned, right? And so on and so forth, right? The advantage with this is that funds deposited in escrow, we could actually also potentially see whether we take advantage with DeFi. But in the end, contract ends and your Archidao NFT gets updated. So we see here a couple of things, right? So one is the Archidao NFT itself, how you work with that. You see the AC20 stake along with the project contract. And you also see the contract NFT in this mechanism here. So kind of 3 smaller projects. So my idea was to essentially have me and Chico work here on the Archidao NFT. You and Bobby Major work on the contract here. And we try and see who else might work on the project contract, but it might be that we, for example, me and you could work on it, right, as a basic structure. Now, what we need to find out here now, and this is now what is, so the NFTs of the contract and the NFTs of the Archidao member can be created independently, what we need to figure out is the crypto economics here. What happens with the stable coins and the fungible tokens? But that's the general kind of idea of what we want to do. Hiko is working on a learn to earn kind of idea that is parallel to what we were discussing using the forward protocol that he understands well at the moment. I'm trying to see if he had put in any additional things here, probably not at the moment. But in the same kind of fashion, you would get your ArchiDAO NFT updated if you are learning through, say, a workshop and potentially also earning part of the AC20. So you could earn the AC20 that allows you then to stake and work with others. And happy to take comments or questions.
I think this diagram is super clear. Now I can work with Bobby to figure out the scope.
Yeah, and the idea would be, you know, if you have then any questions, we can then jump and change the diagram and then work, you know, it's going to work in parallel. But the main idea was to try and understand how this works and at least have it separated and go like, okay, if this happens here, we know where you need to connect, right? So you know, for example, that in the contract, you need a validation mechanism by the multisig. So you'll expect that and you can build it from that point of view. Or from a project manager, right? So we might start having this idea that you had about people being in guilds and they have a role. So, okay, the idea is that the contract, the customer buys the contract NFT, so they put on some money in, and that basically allows them to, shows that they have the funds, but only after the project manager and maybe the multisig have agreed on milestones, then these funds get from the contract to the escrow or something like that, right? Or I don't know. The moment they buy them, maybe it goes already to the escrow. So we need to see how that works.
Yeah, I was thinking like if we have this ERC 1155 contract, same client can have like tokens on past projects NFT. Like we can give like a project completion NFT certificate or initial, like that can have another economics around it. But
yep, exactly. That's it at the moment. I am trying to finish the crypto twin paper, and then I'm going to be working on ArchiDAO NFT for the full of July. Minus a couple of days that I'm going to be off. Yeah, that's about it for now. I'll probably have more updates on the academy part as well next week. I'm waiting to hear from Consensus on that, but yeah.
exciting summer.
Yep. Any more questions, anyone? Okay, cool. I'll make.
So are you going to present this this Saturday on the community call?
Saturday, the community call is at 4 o'clock, yeah? What am I asking? Yeah, why would you? Yeah, it's at 4 o'clock, yeah, sorry. I would prefer we don't present the crypto twin, but we present the ArchiDAO contract, all of that.
Okay.
Do you think it's a good idea?
Yeah. Perfect.
Nate, what do you mean in terms of support of reviewing the paper?
Just
Yeah.
like another set of eyes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm going to circulate it. Mostly the things I would be looking are a bit, yeah, I mean, yeah, I miss things all the time. So yeah, I'll circulate it. But the main idea is to try and have as many people as possible looking at it early on. But if you get any ideas of what you would like to work on from our point of view, because I think, okay, we're building the infrastructure, but the crypto twin kind of idea is a good base to create a product that would get us funds, I think. Plus is at the core of what we're trying to do. So.
Cool. So
Okay.
last week we discussed like Hiko brought up like the forward protocol, and we discussed briefly about Lens and other. So we can coordinate, and either Simon or Hiko can present for the next DevGuild call, and I can take next to next. So like some research, some update. Yeah. Cool.
I'll probably have, I mean, I'll probably have material every week, so you know we can back it up if we don't get people, so it could be okay. Cool. If it's okay with everybody, I think we can close it. Or is there anything else to discuss for now?
Sounds good.
Good.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks everyone. Enjoy. Bye bye.